This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about boozy cheesecake, aggressive geese, and what may be the world's first rabbi and kangaroo joke. All that and more as we watch Season 4, Episode 6 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. I'm one of your hosts. Joining me is my co-host and my sister, Sophia. What's up, Sophia?
Hey, Imran. I just got back from this awesome glamping trip with my girlfriends.
Ooh.
We brought champagne and 3 kinds of cheesecake, and we ate it in our beautiful tents in the woods.
Glamping. That's still a thing, is it?
Glamping. It's the only kind of camping I'll do.
I do that when I'm on my couch watching TV. I just call it glamping.
That as well, yes.
Well, look, that's appropriate. You had that experience because that's what this week's episode of Perfect Strangers is about.
What?
Season 4, Episode 6, listener. The title of this one, Up a Lazy River, Part 1. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, we got a two-parter.
Two-parter. Nice. Up a Lazy River. The title of this episode is a reference to a classic song. You may have heard of it. Maybe some of our older listeners, called Up a Lazy River. It was originally came out in 1930 by some guys called Hoagy Carmichael.
Oh, I know
and
Hoagy Carmichael.
Arodin. But it then became like a really popular jazz song, and a lot of different artists have recorded it.
Oh my God, tons of people, old and new. Everybody from like Bing Crosby to Harry Connick Jr.
And in 1952, it was actually a hit single sung by the Mills Brothers.
Ah, the Mills Brothers. They're they're crooners, you call them.
Yeah, crooners. I think we have a clip. Do we want to play a little clip of this?
Do we want to play it?
Let's do it.
Up a lazy river by the old mill run, the lazy, lazy river in the noonday sun.
That voice is like butter. That's a crooner.
Yes.
That's what you call a crooner.
That is a Mills brother. I don't know which one, but that was the recording of the Mills Brothers.
Sometimes I love these old songs because, the RPMs, you only had like 2.5 minutes and you had to get right into the song.
Right.
So it's
none
just a little 4-bar intro. Boom.
None of
let's
this
get
waiting for the beat to drop.
Exactly. You just get into it, and you're in Up a Lazy River. Great song. What do we got in the TV guide? This is how they describe Up a Lazy River Part 1. If you were to crack that book open back in 1988, it says, what could possibly go wrong on a camping trip with the guys, their girlfriends, and state-of-the-art trouble-free equipment? For starters, whitewater rafting with Larry as the know-it-all guide. Part 1 of 2. I like how the description is a question.
Yes. What could go wrong?
That's weird. That's the description.
We have our standard cast of the guys and the girls, Balky, Larry, Marianne, and Jennifer. We also have some appearances by Lydia, played by Belita Marino,
Yes, I love
and
Lydia.
Harriet, played by Jo Marie Payton France, and a couple other like smaller folks that have been tiny parts in previous episodes.
And we are at November 18th, 1988, original air date of this episode. Of course, Perfect Strangers now streaming for free.
Perfect Streamers.
It is a perfect
Stranging
stream.
for free.
It is a perfect stream of Perfect Strangers on IMDb TV because you just need an Amazon account. It's one little ad break in the middle. That's why it's free, but it's wonderful.
It's wonderful. It lets us have our joyful 22 minutes a day. Okay, let's get into part 1 of Up a Lazy River. Act 1, and we are in the basement of the Chicago Chronicle, a place we know and love. And something stood out to me right away. There are paper signs taped on the walls on either side of the elevator.
Yeah, it's like an office announcement that says annual camping trip.
Annual camping trip, yes. So then the elevator door opens and we get Balky and Harriet stepping out of the elevator, and we find out that Harriet has let Balky do the driving of the elevator, and he asks when he can do it again. And here's our opening quip from Harriet. She goes, how about the 12th and never?
The 12th of never.
And Balky, of course, takes it seriously and says, I'll pencil you in.
That's a fun opening joke. As we get into the meat of the plot of the episode, Harriet asks Balky, are you guys coming on the company camping trip? And Balky says, I'm going to come, but Cousin Larry don't do well out of doors. And he goes, I know my Cousin Larry like the back of my head.
My head.
That's wrong. Back of my head. And then he goes, there's no way, no how. Cousin Larry is going camping, and beautiful timing here as Larry enters from the archives and goes, Balky, we're going camping. What?
So then Balky's wrong. Harriet exits back into the elevator, and Balky tells Larry he doesn't understand. He thought Larry hates camping, and Larry admits that he does hate camping, but Jennifer loves it and thinks it's romantic.
Oh, boy.
And here we go with Larry's schemes to win over Jennifer. First of all, they're already going out, I think, but you know my theory that I never quite believe that Jennifer's really into him.
The schemes will never end, though.
So here's another scheme. He says, this is my chance to get Jennifer away for a romantic weekend. First of all, why would you do a romantic weekend on a company
This is a company
trip?
camping trip. You're not getting away. Everybody you work with, Larry, is going to be there.
Larry, like what? Okay.
And if this all sounds familiar to you, listener, having binged the show, it also sounds familiar to Balky, who goes, wait a minute, cousin. I'm getting a deja voodoo.
Deja voodoo. As he starts to deja vu.
Deja vu, but voodoo kind of works too, as he starts to like twitch around. He goes, the last time you tried to get Jennifer away for a romantic weekend was the time you took a skiing.
Skiing.
Yes, you have to say skiing, which resulted, of course, in them being trapped in an avalanche. And Larry's like, Jennifer's forgotten about all that. And Balky's like, oh, is that right?
He's like, I would have thought it would be hard to forget being buried alive.
Yeah, I don't think she's forgotten about this, Larry.
And this is interesting because now we have reference to a previous 2-part episode.
Yeah, from last season, right?
Yeah, so they're kind of like drawing this continuity line, which doesn't happen that often in this show. But
No Way to Treat a Lady was the 2-part episode.
That's right.
Where they get back. And that was a great one, but I think this 2-parter is going to be even better.
And both of them are like about a Larry like adventure scheme that's gone wrong. Okay, so then, Jennifer comes in to the basement of the Chronicle for some reason.
No, they're going to lunch. She goes, are you ready to go to lunch?
She comes in from the parking garage, and they're ready to go to lunch. And Larry tells her he has wonderful news, and he says, "How would you like to go camping?" And Jennifer says, "I'd love it." Oh, wait, you mean with you?
She's not into you, Larry.
Yeah.
She has to think twice.
It's so cringy. Oh, you mean with you?
And Balky leans in on the side. He goes, the memory lingers on. This is so funny.
Then she tells us, then we find out that Jennifer still hyperventilates every time she passes a ski shop.
It's traumatized this poor girl.
And then Balky completely relates to that, and they go off into the side conversation. He's like, you gotta go with a paper bag. You gotta slip it over your head. You gotta do some deep breathing. And they're both practicing. They're talking about how to cope with the ski shops. And Larry's like, wait, hey, people, does forgive and forget mean anything? And then Balky and Jennifer are like, nope.
I gotta mention Jennifer's hair here. She has these 80s
Extra
bangs
poofy,
right in front, and it looks like a blonde fireworks show as on top of her head. Just like fireworks have gone on and just stuck.
Have that thought.
Oh my God. I was like, this is some crazy hair.
It's very poofy.
It's a very poofy bang up front. But so Larry's trying to convince Jennifer this time it's going to be different. He says it's organized. They're going with the big group. And Jennifer still is not sure. She goes, the woods. So much could go wrong. Absolutely, Jennifer. Your instincts are dead on.
So then Larry gets panicked for a moment. He's like, wait, I have to convince her. And she has reservations. So he's like, you're right. You're absolutely right. Even I wouldn't go camping with just me. And then he like stumbles a bit. And then he says, that's why Balky is going to be the camping leader.
Oh, Balky's like, I am?
This is news to Balky. And Larry has appointed Balky in charge. And then Balky's like, but you never let me lead anything before. And Larry's like, well, you weren't ready before, but now you are. And then he goes back to Jennifer, still trying to convince her. He says, Balky is the master of wilderness. He was practically born outdoors. And then Balky's like, I was born outdoors.
Perfect. He's like, perfect. He's like, well, can I pick a leader or what?
Yeah.
So Jennifer is like, well, if Balky's going to lead, she pretty much says, okay, I'll go. And he's happy because now he's gotten her to go. And Larry's like, Balky, you want to lead us to lunch? And now Balky suggests a bunch of restaurants I've never seen in Chicago.
He gets so excited to be the leader. First, he suggests Bosco's House of Liver and Waffles, which I think is supposed to be a play off of Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles, which isn't a particularly Chicago thing, but it's like a chain maybe, or in LA or something.
Yeah, liver and waffles not sounding too good to Jennifer. And then Balky suggests, he goes, if you don't mind the drive-through, there's always eels on wheels. He's into eels and liver. And you know, Jennifer tells Larry, you know, why don't you lead this one, that lunch on us? And as they're walking out to the garage, he goes, there's always Jack's escargot with the little snails.
Yeah, they needed a third one to round it out.
We got eels on wheels, Jack's escargot, and Bosco's House of Liver and Waffles. I'm going to get a reservation at all three of those. I'll let you know.
Yum.
Which one's
You're
the
gonna
best.
have liver, waffles, eels, and
garlic snails. Yeah.
Yum. Good protein. Okay, so they leave for lunch and we transition to the next scene, which is later that day, or even that evening in their apartment. And there's like all this brand new camping equipment all around the living room. There's a tent set up in front of the fireplace. There's an air mattress in front of the couch where the coffee table is supposed to be, and all this like pots, camping, cooking stuff,
just
pots and
gear.
pans. It's all this stuff.
Camping gear.
And then we see Larry come out from inside the tent and he's holding this lantern. There's also lanterns there. And then Balky comes home through the front door and tells him that Marianne is also available to go camping with them. And then he says, what is all this? And Larry says it's all the stuff they need to go camping. And he points out some of it. He said, here's your state-of-the-art all-season tent, your self-contained, self-igniting propane stove, your double-mantled, high-intensity camping lantern with optional bug light. And Balky goes, cousin, you're bringing beer? And Larry just goes, bug light. Bug light.
You heard Bud Light. I don't blame him.
Yum.
But Balky has a question. He thought camping was just a man and nature and nothing in between. And Larry goes, don't you think I know that? And he goes, hey, if it was just you or me, I'd bring nothing but my trusting hunting knife. And then here we go. Some amazing Larry splaining, which is always wonderful when he does it. He says, but we're bringing women.
And of course, Balky has something to say. He says, on Meepos, when we bring women, it's easier. They do all the heavy lifting.
They got some great stock women out there.
Yes.
and Larry, you know, understands. He goes, look, if Jennifer and Marianne were like that hardy breed, but they're not. And he says, here's another observation about American women from Larry. Larry's explaining, roughing it does not make American women feel romantic. Comfort does.
Oh boy.
And he wants them to feel comfortable. And Balky wants them to feel comfortable, but he goes, but good golly, Miss Molly, do we really need all this? Quoting,
here's our second song reference of the episode.
Oh, there's more songs coming up. There's a lot of song references. Good golly,
Miss Molly is the 1958 popular song by Little Richard.
Great song. Good golly, Miss Molly.
So Larry assures Balky that he has it narrowed down to the bare essentials. Then Balky points to something on the ground. He's like, what's this? And it's a blue thing. It's a sleeping bag. And Larry says, oh, take off your shoes and step into this baby. Give it a try. And he explains that it's a top of the line, all weather, waterproof sleeping bag.
Yes, a blue sleeping bag.
Blue sleeping bag that has remained in our memories for 40 years.
In combination with the air mattress, will give Jennifer and Marianne comfort and warmth, is how he says two of the ingredients necessary for a romantic camping trip. And then he tells Balky, the man at the store told him that in an event of emergency, 2 people could fit in this thing as Balky's already in the bag. He's trying it on.
And he says, well, he's already in the bag. And when Larry mentions 2 people in there, Balky says, well, I think he sold you a bill of rights. There's no way you can get 2 people in here. Okay, let's pause for a second.
Yeah.
Because I went down a bit of a hole because I had never heard even the right version of this expression.
Yeah, that's a screwed up expression.
So the expression is to sell someone a bill of goods.
I've heard that, but I'm not sure why that's a bad thing.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering, and I did some research. To sell someone a bill of goods means to attempt to convince someone of a lie, especially in order to take unfair advantage of them, to swindle or to con someone. And then I was looking for where it started, how that became a negative thing, and I found some explanations. There were a lot, but here's the ones I think make the most sense. There's a theory that at some point a common swindle was to sell someone a bill of goods. Not the actual goods themselves, but just the bill, like
you
the
just
list,
get a
the
bill
paper,
and nothing else.
And someone said it's a similar vein to what they've seen on eBay when they auction boxes of various popular products, but just the boxes.
Oh, there's nothing inside the boxes.
So basically, sold a bill of goods means to be sold a promise of something, but just the promise. No goods were ever intended, or they don't exist, or not as promised, but you get the paper detailing the transaction.
And so Balky
turned it into sold you a bill of rights, which is also funny. Yes. Anyway, that was just a little rabbit hole I went down.
I'm glad you found what that was, because I was like, I couldn't remember what the saying was, and then I remember it was bill of goods, and then I'm like, why is that a bad thing? It sounds like an okay thing.
Sold you a bill of goods. Okay, so Balky doesn't believe that 2 people can get in this sleeping bag, and Larry insists that he will show him. So he starts climbing into the sleeping bag with Balky. They're standing still.
Yeah, they're
standing
upright
at this
sleeping
point.
bag
They're
testing.
upright in the sleeping bag. And Larry gets in. They get really snug together, and he zips the thing up. He's like, he's determined to show him that 2 people will fit. Okay, so he zips it all up. And Balky's like, cousin, this is really eating up my day, like there's a lot of other things we can be doing. Anyway, he zips up the bag. They're both in it, snug and tight, standing upright.
You just see their heads poking out of the top.
You just see their heads out of the blue. And he goes, there, are you satisfied? And Balky's like, well, I'll be snookered. And he makes a joke. He says, 2 people can fit in here, but they have to take turns breathing. And then the whole sleeping bag arches back in the laughing upward to the sky that he does.
There's some great physical comedy.
At his own jokes. And then Larry's like, oh, also, if it gets really cold, you can just put the hood on. And then he reaches back, pulls the hood over, and draws the drawstring tight so that their faces smush together. And it's really just like one little hole of 2 faces.
It's this giant blue cocoon with 2 heads in a little hole at the top. It's the funniest looking visual.
Okay, and next comes our absolute favorite moment that has stayed in my brain for all these years since 1988. This line is like my all-time favorite, and I never forgot it. And every time I watch it, I laugh and laugh and laugh. So they're in the sleeping bag, and Larry is still Larry-splaining about this sleeping bag to Balky. They're face to face. Their faces are literally touching, smushed into this. And Larry says, Balky, the goose down in this bag. And Balky starts screaming, ah, ah, ah. And Larry's like, what? And Balky goes, there's a goose down in this bag.
It's so funny. He's looking down all scared. Like, just the moment when he starts screaming, it's so funny because you don't know where it's going. And it's such a clever line. There's a goose down in this bag?
And then Larry says, no, you're hysterical. Calm down. And they start you can see their arms
punch each other,
punching each other inside the bag.
Stop it, Balky, stop it.
And then they calm down and they're quiet. And you can see Bronson Pinchot at this point, trying to control his face from laughing. And Larry goes, feathers, goose feathers.
Well, and the first time he says feathers, Balky's little hair in front flies up. He pushes the air right in. It's feathers. It's so perfect. It's so funny the way his hair flops.
His face.
Their faces are touching.
So he let me tell you, for the last 40 years, every time I come across or think about a sleeping bag I replay this moment in my head. I'm
It's
like, the
so
goose down in this bag.
funny.
There's a goose down in
There's
this
a goose
bag.
down in this bag.
And then he explains to him whatever he was going to say about the goose feathers. And then Balky just says, cousin, I'm sorry. As a child, I had a very traumatic experience with a goose. And then there's like a long pause where Larry just looks at him. Balky looks away, turns his head sort of off to the side in shame. And there's just like a long moment of silence. And then Larry goes, I'll bet you did.
You know what, though? Geese, you don't mess around with them. You ever? Because out in the suburbs here, there's geese everywhere. They will come and peck you. They don't care. They are very aggressive. Like, you don't mess around with the goose. So I'm not surprised Balky had a traumatic experience with a goose, because those geese are very territorial.
So this is one part of this episode that has stayed with me. There's also another part coming up right now that also stayed in my memory.
Yes, because as they're snug in this sleeping bag, all bundled and tied together, the phone starts to ring, because of course it does.
And the phone is on the kitchen counter, which is a few paces away.
Over to their right, and
they're standing.
Balky looks at him and goes, would you like to get that, or shall I? And then does his little laugh. And of course, the zipper is stuck. As Larry tries to free them, he says the zipper is stuck. And Balky's like, too bad you didn't get a sleeping bag with a phone in it.
You know what this reminded me of? The zipper is stuck.
Yeah.
The guard locked the window.
Balky, don't tell me the guard didn't lock the window.
The guard didn't lock the window. So the phone's ringing, but they're stuck inside this bag because the zipper is stuck. So they have to coordinate to get themselves inside while stuck in the sleeping bag over to the phone. So they like turn both of their bodies toward the kitchen counter, and then they start going hopping, and then they synchronize hop in unison, hop. And
I remember this slide too. I remember the hopping bit. Like when they did that, I was like, "Oh my god, the hopping!" I remember
and
this.
And the hop looks like like the Pixar lamp.
Oh yeah, because they're one unit.
That's how they're hopping.
And the whole time they move in this bag, they kind of move as like one unit, and they'll do it later. Yeah. It's amazing. It's so funny. So they hop over to the phone, and somehow they lean over, and Balky definitely picks up the receiver from the cord with his teeth.
Yeah,
and pulls it up to where Larry can grab the phone, and he's like, okay, Balky, I'll listen, you talk, okay? And then Balky's going, hello. And Larry's like, Balky. He goes, what? He goes, they hung up. And then Balky's just like, oh, okay. And he takes the phone back by the cord. They lean over, drops it on the cradle. It doesn't go correctly on the cradle. And for a second, they look at it, and they're like, whatever. And then they go back to the thing.
Just like, meh. And then they have to get out of the sleeping bag, but then there's a knock at the door, and Larry asks, who is it? And we hear a voice say, it's Jennifer.
Uh-oh.
And now Larry is totally panicked because, of course, he can't let Jennifer see them stuck in a sleeping bag because then she'll lose confidence in this whole trip. And he's like, just a minute. And then they like hop.
More hopping.
Then they go hopping.
Except they run into the air mattress and fall face first in a bundle.
Onto the air mattress.
Yes. And then they're both, like I said, they were moving in unison. They're moving like a caterpillar or snail.
Like an inchworm or something.
But at the same time, like they're one...
they're one unit,
one
face
thing.
Down on this air mattress.
As Jennifer just opens the door and walks in, and she stands in, and she comes and walks with them, and then they don't even lift their heads up. She can't see their faces. They both stop and they go, hi.
Just their voices from inside this face.
And she's like, I was just wondering is this a bad time?
And then they sort of both like heave and hurl and like flip themselves over.
Yeah, so they're facing up now, and they
onto their
roll
backs.
off of the air mattress almost. They're like half on the air mattress.
Halfway off the air mattress.
It's so funny.
And they're just on the floor. And at no point do they say, hey, can you help us with this zipper?
I was waiting for Larry to ask, but no, he can't show any weakness.
He can't.
He's in complete control. Yes, even though clearly they're not in control.
So he tells Jennifer they're just testing the sleeping bag. And then he asks Jennifer if she has any gear she needs tested. And she's like, no, I just want to know what time we're leaving in the morning. And then they do this little like conversation inside the sleeping bag,
Oh, it's
talking
so
over each
funny.
other, where Larry's like, oh, I want to get up at 5:30 and get in the shower and this and that, blah, 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 blah. And Balky does the same thing. You want an omelet for breakfast with feta, something like that, blah, blah, blah. And they're talking over each other and then they stop at the same time and they both look up and say 6:15.
6:15. It's great comedic
It's
timing.
really good
They're
timing.
talking at the same time and they're like, 6:15.
Yeah.
And Jennifer says, fine. And she turns and leaves. She's about to leave and she stops just to confirm Balky is still their camping leader.
Yeah.
And they're both like, oh yeah, lead on. You never said a true thing. Lead on. And she was just checking and she leaves. Now, there's a weird cut shot here of Jennifer. If you look closely.
Yeah. Some of our listeners noticed it too and mentioned it in our group. Yeah, when she's standing over them on that air mattress, there's like a part of it where I think the scene was just flipped or, the mirror image or whatever.
What happens is she turns to leave for the door and suddenly the door is on the other side of the tent.
Okay.
It's to the
and
left
the paintings
of the tent.
are swapped.
And the painting is different when the door is to the right of the tent. So what people that were assuming they flipped it to
reverse the shot.
So it looked like she was looking at them more. It's really weird because I was like, oh my God, why is the door over there now? And then she turns and goes to the right when she actually leaves.
Yeah. And you can't tell anything on her because her hair is just like the same.
It's symmetrical. She's symmetrical. Sometimes when you flip a shot, like people look weird when you reverse it. But
she looked the same. Yeah.
I mean, she has a perfectly symmetrical face.
But the background was flipped. So
yeah, the painting is you seeing a different side. It was a very, very strange, but
very weird. I wonder why they did that and didn't just
reshoot it. I mean, when they got to the edit, they were probably like, "Oh, nerds, we have nothing.
Yeah,
we have nothing else. Hey, just flip it. Okay,
just flip it. No one will notice.
I think people,
and if they do, they'll forget by next week.
They probably did that a lot in these sitcoms back in the day.
Yeah, because people couldn't like pause and stuff and rewind.
And then as soon as Jennifer leaves, Larry's like, you think she noticed anything wrong, do you? You don't think she noticed anything wrong? And Balky's like, no. I think she probably sees two men wearing a sleeping bag each and every day.
And then Larry's like, it's just a small setback, but this will still be the greatest camping. Everything is so high stakes for Larry.
Yeah.
This will still be the greatest camping trip ever.
Yeah.
And Balky says, cousin, wake up and smell the propane. We're trapped and we haven't even left the apartment yet, which is the first one is a play on wake up and smell the roses.
Wake up and smell the coffee
because of
or
the
roses?
camping.
I thought it was coffee. Wake up and smell the coffee. Roses?
Smell the coffee.
I don't know. Something.
But not propane. It's
Not
typically
propane.
something nice. They're trapped and they haven't even left the apartment.
Not a good start. Not a good start to the camping trip.
We fade out as they continue to struggle in the sleeping bag. We never find out how they got out of that sleeping bag.
No, did they have to cut themselves out? Or they,
Because this is the end of Act 1.
Yes.
But he had so much pride, he couldn't even ask Jennifer to
he's like,
unzip the freaking
give us a hand
sleeping
here.
bag.
Everything's
I
great.
know.
Just pull this thing. We'll be fine. Thanks. No, nothing. Larry will not do it. No, and it gets crazier. Listener, if you enjoy Perfect Strangers and want to be a part of the conversation, we have a Facebook group where you could meet other Perfect Strangers fans and leave your comments, observations on every episode we record. I post a thread there a few weeks in advance of every episode, so you can watch it on IMDb TV and then ask your questions, like, why is the door on the other side for this one shot?
Yes.
Good question. We don't know, but we definitely know. It's fun stuff like that to keep you distracted and keep your love for Perfect Strangers in our Facebook group. There's a link in the show notes.
Yes. Join us. It's a lot of fun. Okay. Going into Act 2, we are now
we're
camping. We're camping. Act 2, we're like, okay, so first of all, I wondered, live in Chicago, right? Where do you go camping from Chicago? Because later on in the rest of this episode, there's like mountains and hills in the background.
Oh, that is true. Yeah. No, nothing.
And that definitely doesn't exist anywhere near Chicago.
You know, Wisconsin and Michigan has lots of great wilderness and rivers.
Woods, but not mountains.
No.
Yeah, they definitely
Maybe
had
they flew out somewhere. I don't know. The Chronicle pay for a group flight? Probably not.
Probably. I don't know. These are the details we just skipped over. But we're camping somewhere in a hilly, woodsy area.
Well, first you see just this set of fake trees and fake dirt and cabins, and there's a little a rental shack where they rent rafts in the corner.
Rafts.
Yeah. And there's a guide from the Chronicle, and he's telling everybody to line up, gather around this picnic table. And he is pointing out that the group leader, the price does not include a tip for the group leader, just in case you didn't know. So he's trying to squeeze some nice tips out of everyone.
And then we see Lydia and Harriet step out from the woods. They've gone camping too. And Lydia is wearing this camouflage jumper outfit, belted at the waist. It's like a jumpsuit.
It's like red,
but it's bright red.
With black shapes on it.
Red and pink, bright camouflage. It's like a whole jumpsuit, head to toe. And Harriet says, "Are you going to wear that all weekend? I'm starting to get a migraine." And Lydia explains that if there are any hunters in the woods, she wants to make sure they see her. And then here's Harriet's snip her roast. She says, "See you. Hang a couple of lights on your butt and airplanes will land on your back." And then they walk off while Lydia complains, "Why are you always undermining my self-confidence?" And as they exit. So it's just a little snippet. I feel like they've been doing that for several episodes in a row now, just building this Harriet-Lydia dynamic.
It's a running gag.
Yeah, it's a runner.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little note about the rest of the folks we see here.
Who else is with them?
Camping, the Chronicle staff that has gone camping. So there are some women who, if you pay very close, a woman who also works in the mailroom, who's if you've paid attention to that.
Yeah.
There's also another extra, I suppose, who has been in various previous episodes. And we don't know their names because they're never credited in the credits, but they're definitely recurring extras. Okay. And then the guy who plays the group leader is a man named Harry Wolf. And we've seen him before way a long time ago in season 1. I think it was the last episode of season 1 called Happy Birthday Baby. It was Larry's 24th birthday party. And this guy played Max, the owner of the newsstand.
Yeah, because remember Balky invited the people from the diner.
All the random people,
We went on the street. Snake
in the middle of the night.
There.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So a few recurring people. Okay. So we're camping. Then we see Balky and Marianne come onto the scene. And Balky has a rolled blanket tied up with string and around his neck, so it's hanging over his chest.
Yeah, very simple, light
That's
packing.
all he's brought for camping.
That's all he needs.
And Marianne, we find out that Marianne has never been camping before. And I thought there was going to be some other punchline there, but it's just she's not been camping before. Maybe there was and it was cut, but I thought this was a thrown away Marianne line where it could have been an opportunity to have something very Marianne-ish.
And then Jennifer and Larry walk into the scene, and Larry has this giant backpack on his back with easily 3 rolled up sleeping bag type things. He has a giant cooler in one hand, a picnic basket in the other hand. He's
carrying all this stuff.
And Jennifer's like, "You need help with that?" He's like, "Oh, no, I'm fine. If I can't carry twice my body weight in camping gear, I don't deserve to go camping." Trying to be all macho and showing off.
Well, what about his bad back that he's always talking
his
about?
Bad back comes and goes. I know. You think this would throw it right out.
Now he's being macho, carrying twice his body weight, but when he had to move a piano, he was all my bad back.
In the meantime, the guide is telling them this is not a zoo. Don't feed or pet the animals. It's their home. And he says, all Chronicle campers, please go down this path. They're going to they're given a mule to take to the actual campsite. And he goes, and remember, those mules can bite. Sounds lovely. And while he's saying this, Larry has eyed the raft rental shack over in the corner.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't like this. The gears in his head are starting to turn.
And the girls move with the group toward where they were supposed to go. And Balky starts to go too, but Larry pulls him back. And he tells the girls, "You go ahead. We'll catch up." And he tells Balky, "We need to talk." And he tells Balky that the girls made like disgusting faces or something when they heard the word mules.
I don't even think he was looking at their faces.
Yeah, but he's trying to convince Balky that like they were not happy campers when they heard the word mules. And he suggests that they, instead of taking the mules to the campsite, that they take a raft and the river and go in the river. Will take them in a raft to the campsite. What could be more romantic? And then Balky says, shearing a sheep with the woman you love, which does sound romantic. But then Balky remembers that he's the leader and he says, but that's not the point. The point is as leader, I veto the rafts and I go for the mules.
Oh, so Larry's got to think fast. He's got a plan. He needs to spin this. And he goes, he comes up with a plan. Some scheming, some great Larry scheming. He goes, Balky, I didn't want to bring this up before, but you're technically your leadership doesn't begin until we get to the campsite. He's like, it's called camping leader. When you get to the campsite, that's when you lead. That's when you're in charge. But he goes, it's my responsibility to get us there. Balky goes, wow. He goes, I had no idea there was such a subtle division of leadership. He goes, well, now you do. And they go over to the raft rental where they say hi and they're like, we'd like to rent a raft big enough for 4. And the guy's like, okay, do you guys want a guide? And simultaneously, Balky says yes, Larry says no at the same time.
Yes, and we know there's going to be trouble. This gentleman who plays the raft rental guy is a little bit known for playing Billy the psychotic Santa Claus suited killer.
Robert Brian Wilson is his name.
His name is Robert Brian Wilson, and this was in the horror film Silent Night, Deadly Night, which became a bit of a cult classic.
I've never heard of this.
I've never heard it, but I love horror films, so I should watch that.
You should check it.
And so Balky says yes to the guide. Larry says no. And Larry he says, excuse us. And they step aside to have a conversation. And Balky says it might have been nice to take a guide. It should be nice to take a guide. And Larry says, Balky, we don't need a guide to take us down the river. The river only goes one way. It's a one-way river. Oh, Larry. And Balky says he thinks it's a tad more complicated than that. And Larry, then we have like oh, you do? Yes, I do. You do? You do. And then Larry says, Balky, let me ask you a question. Uh-oh. How many rivers have you been on? And Balky's like, how many? How many rivers? How many rivers have you been on in a rubber raft in America? None, as in 0, as in no rivers have you been on in a rubber raft in America.
So, yeah, he gives the great, and didn't he just do this last episode? Like 2 episodes ago? But that's recently. A great Larry bit. But there's also this physical comedy bit that's going on throughout this whole conversation because when Larry turns away from Balky, his sleeping bag is so big that the big thing rolled up behind him hits Balky on the head. And then Balky turns just as Larry turns back and Balky looks behind him like someone tapped him. He's like, what? So that's happened once.
And then Larry goes, Balky, focus. Because he's like, what are you looking at? Focus.
He goes, pay attention. So after he goes, we don't need a guide, he turns again and hits Balky on the head again. Balky looks back and Larry grabs him again. He goes, pay attention. He goes, look, we sit in the raft with Jennifer and Marianne. The river slowly takes us to the campsite. He goes, we glide up. They both lean one way. He goes, we get out. Then they lean another way. And Balky goes, I take charge. And he's like, yeah, sure. He just like dismisses him. He goes, the point is everyone will have fun.
Because?
He's like, cause we'll be rolling.
Rolling
on the river.
Rolling on the river. That's what Balky says. And then Larry just looks at him and starts going, left a good job in the city, snapping his fingers. And Balky joins in and they end up singing and dancing. Like, again, another coordinated dance, which we just saw last episode.
That's great.
Too.
We get a little singing and dancing number as they sing their way back to the raft rental shack.
Yes. And of course, that song that they were singing is Proud Mary, recorded first in 1968 by Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yes.
and then made more popular in 1970 by Ike and Tina Turner.
Both of those versions are fantastic. I love the CCR version because it is just straight up 60s rock and roll.
Yeah.
And then the Ike and Tina version is just this amazing thing you have to dance to every time you hear it. You got to do the Tina Turner dance. Also, a lot of Tina Turner songs on the song. We know Balky. He's like the first song he sang was Tina Turner.
And I think that the dance they were doing was
it was
Tina
the
Turner
rolling down the
inspired
river.
dance. Yeah. So basically, they're renting a raft and no guide.
Oh boy, this should go great.
It should go great. So we go to the next scene, and it seems like it's going perfectly.
They're on the river.
This huge raft, huge inflatable rubber raft. 4 people. There's like a table in front of them. There's champagne.
That's the most hilarious
flutes.
thing. He has a table with a tablecloth set up with plates, champagne. There's a centerpiece
flutes,
with flowers.
Yes. Yeah, like what?
And then you also see, this is another thing I love, is, they shot we're talking about the mountains. You finally see this river going through these mountains. So they shoot these wide, far away shots. Of course, with just 2 other blonde women and brown-haired men. It's
extras.
It's the stunt guys, but they're cutting that with the studio shot of them on the raft. But
with green screen, and it's like really 1980s style.
I don't know. This is nowhere in the Midwest, clearly. I mean, this is California. But I love that just like he's got a vase with flowers. It's just
oh my God,
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and like champagne glasses, flowers, tablecloth, a table. Where did the table come from?
And they see a deer, and everyone's like, "Oh, look, a deer!"
And then Marianne's like, "It looks just like Bambi," and they go, "Oh," again. And Jennifer says, Larry says, I think we all have to agree that this is absolutely the best time we have ever had out of doors.
So far. What about the skiing trip? That was not a good time.
And Jennifer says, it's absolutely beautiful out here. And Larry says, nature. I love it. It's good to get back to the simple life. And then he opens the cooler and he says, now I have 3 kinds of cheesecake. And he pulls out 3 like Tupperware containers and he goes, almond, chocolate chip, and Grand Marnier, as he puts them all on out in front of them. And then Balky is looking off to the side. He says, cousin, there's an important decision to be made. And Larry says, you're absolutely right. Almond, chocolate chip, or Grand Marnier.
Is 3 types of cheesecake really necessary on a camping trip, Larry?
Yes, 3 types. And Grand Marnier, I had to look that up too. That's like a booze.
That's the boozy cheesecake
out of.
Grand Marnier. I love how he says that. Almond?
Grand Marnier.
Chocolate chip? Grand Marnier. That's not the decision. The decision, Balky says, is the river has a fork in the road.
A fork in the road, in the river. I love it.
Has a fork in the road. It's so good. And he's like, which way should we go? And so Larry has a map inside. They're all wearing, flotation vests. So at least they were smart and put on the orange floaty vest. He pulls out a map. He goes, oh, well, let's see. He says, my map says to go to left. The map says we go left.
And then Balky says, okay, maybe that's what the map says, but Mother Nature is whispering in my ear that we should go right.
Didn't this exact thing happen when they were buried and tunneling out of the avalanche?
Yes,
Did he not learn to trust Balky's instincts yet?
No.
Because Larry goes...
It was a short-lived lesson.
I can't believe I think that was the lesson. I should listen to you more, Balky, because you're always right. No, Larry goes, isn't that cute? Mother Nature's whispering in his ear. He goes, well, maybe Mother Nature hasn't looked at my map. And then he goes, we're going... And they end up going left, and then he goes, now, almond, chocolate chip, or Grand Marnier.
Okay, so we cut to a little while later. They're further along in the river.
They went left after the fork.
They went left in the fork in the road in the river. The fork in the river road. And now there's like it's getting a little bumpy, it's getting a little fast, and there's some rocks showing up.
He put the table away. They packed everything up, and like Balky's up front, and Jennifer, Marianne, and Larry are sitting in the back drinking champagne.
Yes.
Like there's, just like no worries.
No worries. And then Balky's in front and he says, cousin, I think we have a problem. And Larry takes his last sip of champagne and he says, no kidding, we're out of champagne. I knew I should have brought more.
I mean, you know how heavy a bottle of champagne is? Why are you lugging this around?
And like, how did those glasses not break in the pack?
Yeah, were they plastic even then? They should have.
Yeah.
But the problem is, Balky goes, no cause, and I think the river is getting angry at us as it's getting to get a little bumpy, and
it's bumpy. They're going faster. There's rocks around in the river.
Larry moves up to the front to sit next to Balky, and he takes a paddle, and he's like, no big deal, let's just paddle. And they're paddling.
They all start paddling.
And Jennifer's like, Larry, are we going a lot faster than we were before? And then Larry's still trying to pretend he knows what he's talking about. He's like, well, maybe a few more knots. Speed on the water is hard to judge. Just making up excuses. And then off screen, somebody is splashing water at them.
Yeah.
Clearly from a bucket in this green screen
There's
shot.
water being thrown out. And they're bouncing up and down in this raft in a studio. And then we see like this big boulder in front of them. And then Balky says, danger, on the other hand, is rather easy to judge.
Yes, because there's a big rock coming at them.
So they don't hit the rock, they miss it, but now they're like in these like white water rapids, right?
Yeah.
Like and
they're cutting back and forth between the stunt shots, the actual outside shots, who are there in this raft. You know, to their credit, these stunt people are trying to paddle these rough waters. But it's so funny because then they cut back to the studio shot with a really...
And they're like bouncing around.
Yes,
There's water being thrown at them. They're panicking. And Larry says, don't panic. We can do this. People go down rivers every day. How hard can it be? And Balky says, cousin, this is not a log ride at Knott's Berry Farm, which I thought was a very random reference because this is also not a Chicago reference.
Yeah.
It's a famous theme park in California.
It's still open, I think, right? I wonder if it's still open.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
According to Wikipedia, it was the 12th most visited theme park in North America in 2015 and averages approximately 4 million visitors per year.
I don't think these writers ever came to Chicago. I don't know if they know a lot of things about the Midwest.
Well, there was a reference to Santa's Village before.
Yeah, but we made
the Christmas episode.
But we may have been wrong. He may have been actually referring to actual Santa's Village.
Oh, Santa's Village. Oh, interesting.
I think we just read into that. And again, it's not like you could do research. It was a lot harder to find things when you're writing. You know, they're just like,
right,
whatever. We're just going to put in references from California.
Yeah, there wasn't Google then.
No, there's nothing you could use. I mean, you'd have to go to the library and figure.
You'd have to go in the phone book and look up
that.
theme parks in Chicago.
They're not doing that. So now this river is really quite wild, and everybody's getting thrown about. And Larry knocks Balky with the paddle. He swings around. They're starting to choke one another.
Yeah, in a very Stooges sort of way. Yeah. They one almost falls out. One saves the other one, and then once they're back in the boat, they start strangling each other, very like Bart and Homer Simpson. Homer to Bart Simpson.
Come here, boy. And the girls are yelling at him, telling him to stop fighting and whatever. And then suddenly it just kind of the water eases and calms down. And Larry's like, there, that wasn't so bad. And Balky's like, no, just a little white water. Larry goes, I think we're okay. And then they hear this sound.
It's like a roar, like
it's a
loud,
roaring, rushing, whooshing sound. Yeah. And Jennifer's like, what's that sound? And Marianne goes, I've heard that sound before. She goes, yeah, on my trip to Niagara Falls. And
then they all realize what she's saying.
Balky and Larry look at each other and they go, Niagara Falls! And the water has picked up again. And they're both starting to fight again, and they're getting knocked back and forth off their seats.
And they're strangling each other again.
More water is being splashed on them. It was just a sprinkle before.
And then they're strangling each other back and forth, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And then eventually Larry falls out of the raft and into the water. And then Balky gets up and runs to the back of the raft, jumps in to save him. And we hear people saying, I can't swim. I can't swim. I don't know who does it.
No, well, what happens is first Larry falls, and then Balky jumps in, and then for some reason, Marianne just jumps out of the raft, and then Jennifer jumps out of the raft, and the raft gets stuck. And
Marianne goes, Balky, I'll save you. Yes. Jumps out to save Balky, but then we hear Jennifer go, Marianne, you don't know how to swim.
Yeah, Marianne and then goes, Jennifer I can't swim.
Out. So they all, for some reason, decide to jump out of the raft.
And then and you see the stunt people getting carried away in the water. And then the last shot we see is an on-location shot of this empty raft going through these whitewater rapids. And it says, to be continued. Oh, my God.
No. And presumably they're very close to a waterfall. The raft and the people are very close to a waterfall.
Oh dear, our crew are in danger, and roll credits.
And roll credits. There's no lesson time, obviously. That's going to come next episode.
Oh, there better be a big lesson
There
time.
better be a big lesson, even though it will be short-lived again.
Listener, grab some of our Dance of Joy podcast merch at our TeePublic shop. Visit danceofjoypod.com/shop, where you can outfit yourself with a lovely t-shirt or tank top or hoodie, or a cell phone case or a mug to drink coffee out of. Lots of fun things with the Dance of Joy logo to show everyone that you love Perfect Strangers and you listen to the show. Larry has gotten them again in quite a pickle.
Yes.
With his plans.
What a pickle. What a pickle.
Yeah. So, they did filming. I think filming the studio stuff in front of the audience is really funny. But I wonder how the live audience experiences the rest of the show, like those far shots.
Maybe there's a screen. I don't know that they show those shots.
It's just so funny, because they're clearly stunt people in the far away shots. But man, you know what? I like this two-parter almost better than the first one. This episode, not only does it have our favorite line, "Goose down in the bag,"
goose down,
and the hopping. You got mansplaining. You got a plan. You got Larry screwing up to impress
You have a lot of
Jennifer.
the classic gags. You have Larry saying, "How many times?"
Yeah, you got them singing and dancing together.
All we're missing is a Marianne moment of clarity, which I feel like was set up and maybe cut out.
Yeah,
because there was
edit.
a weird
Yeah.
setup line, but there was no punchline.
And if they do a Dance of Joy, that would complete everything. But there's no Dance of Joy.
There's no Dance of Joy.
But there's
also no Don't Be Ridiculous.
There's no Don't Be Ridiculous. Maybe in the next episode. But they have a lot of
the singing and dancing,
classic things, classic
they
story
even have
things.
Harriet and Lydia bickering. So great episode. One, if for nothing else, because that one bit stayed with us for so many years.
There's a goose down in this bag.
And I don't think we're alone in that sentiment. I think a lot of people love that line.
One of the funniest moments on the series.
Have you ever been camping or rafting?
I'm not too outdoorsy. I can be. I remember I was in the Weeblos Boy Scouts when I was really little.
Yeah.
We went camping. I don't think I enjoyed that. I did go more recently to this outdoor music festival in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, 10,000 Lakes. And you camped there because it was like a 3-day.
Did you have a tent? You have a tent?
My wife had a tent. She brought this giant tent, and I had the Honda Element. That's you could sleep in that car, which was great. And then it's like a 3-day hippie jam music festival.
Oh, fun!
And I brought my guitar, so that was actually fun. I've never been whitewater rafting. It looks like fun, but it also looks
no
really
way.
dangerous.
I would never do that. It looks so frightening. I haven't been camping. I have lived outdoors, though. I mean, I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and I basically lived in a very rural village. A lot of that was outdoors for 3 years, but that wasn't camping. That was just living how people live.
That's what we call
not in a tent.
Camping here. Glamping?
In a tent? I've never lived in a tent.
But now you go glamping and stuff. But
now
we build houses so we don't have to sleep outside. That's what I'm saying. Although it can be fun. I can see how
outside is nice sometimes.
Outside is nice. It's quiet. It's peaceful.
Yeah.
Not when you let Larry, though, plan your vacation.
Right.
Should never have gone with Larry.
Okay, so and the other thing that stood out to me about this episode is Larry is back to his I know what women want. I know what Jennifer is. This is going to be the greatest trip ever because it's going to. First of all, who brings your girlfriend on a romantic work trip? What?
And she's still not into you, Larry.
It's a company outing.
But my God, he never learns from Balky. When Balky says go this way, you go that way. This is already happening.
Yeah.
All right, let's find out what our listeners thought, sister.
Okay, first we'll start with cousin Pam Hitchcock, who says, a top-of-the-line episode, well-written with clever dialogue and superb physical comedy, lots of Balkyisms and running jokes. Yep. You feel that the scriptwriters know the characters and are having fun playing with them.
I agree, absolutely. I mean,
yes, and I imagine some of this was also from Marklin Baker and Bronson Pinchot themselves, sort of adding improvisations.
I mean, the
into the script.
sleeping bag bit is hilarious.
The sleeping bag
It's
was just
hilarious. But them fighting is also funny.
And cousin Evelyn Behar calls this one of the epic episodes of Perfect Strangers, specifically because of the sleeping bag.
The sleeping bag is key here. Yes.
Yes.
She's right.
Everyone loves that sleeping bag. And we have cousin John Adama, who always gives us a nice little summary of his thoughts for each episode. And this time he writes, this episode was really elevated by the sleeping bag bit. While I appreciate the drama, it's hard to worry for people you watched dive off a raft.
I was thinking that. They just
true.
jumped
Like,
off of the, what are you doing?
Would you jump out of the raft?
Why are you jumping off this raft?
And he says they chose to leave safety and their supplies. A capsize would have raised the stakes.
Yeah.
Also, if the paper is off camping, who's writing the news?
I guess there's no issue this week.
It's not the whole paper.
But it's a case of Chronicle.
It was only like 5 people.
It was like no one's getting their mail. We know that much.
That's true.
They're going to have to wait. But no, he's right. A capsize. If it hit a rock and it turned over and everybody fell over, then you'd be like, oh my God. But yeah, they jumped off the raft.
Well, Larry fell out. And
everyone's like, I'll save you. And the next person's like, I'll save you. And the next person's like, I'll save you. So it's
you'd think they would have had like a rope or something in the raft.
A little tether. Again, at least they're wearing their floaties.
Yeah.
And then I got a couple of comments here from cousin Richard Sandoval.
Oh, yay.
Richard's great. He had, and this is not about this episode, but just a couple things in general. Cousin Richard says, as a Mexican American, I have to say that most of Balky's dishes that involve pig sound freaking delicious. LOL. I love pig snout.
Yum.
That's fantastic. Someone who actually knows what it tastes like. It's so good.
Yes.
And then based on our last episode, High Society, remember when he was about to tell a rabbi and kangaroo joke?
Yes.
So cousin Richard said, just heard the episode and loved it. A rabbi and kangaroo joke, eh? Okay, I'm up for the challenge.
Yay.
Oh my God, he's going to give it his go. So here it is.
Because we challenged our listeners to tell us a rabbi and kangaroo joke. So here's our
cousin Rich comes through.
Here's our winner joke.
He says his joke goes, a rabbi walks into temple with a kangaroo. A parishioner asks, Rabbi, why did you bring a kangaroo to temple? The rabbi responds, because my wife was being a pain in the tuchus. He says, yes, I'm a dad, and this is my power.
Thank you, Richard Sandoval. You win our rabbi kangaroo joke challenge.
That's up there with Jack Benny's Take My Wife, please. Yes. Great dad joke, Rich.
Thank you. Richard gets points.
Well done.
Well done. Points. We should do like a challenge for every episode.
Oh, we really should. I think the listeners can definitely come through.
Yes. Okay. Maybe we'll add that as a new segment and feature to our show, an episode themed challenge. Okay. Thank you. That was an excellent, the best rabbi and kangaroo joke I've ever heard.
Me too.
Points. All right. As I said before, we don't have any Don't Be Ridiculouses in this episode. We do. Of
course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
We do have a pretty awesome Dimitri Sheep appearance.
Yeah, where's Dimitri?
Did you catch him?
I did see it. It's very cute.
Dimitri was on the bookshelf in the back of the apartment, enrobed, encased in a blue sleeping bag, just like Balky and Larry.
Hopping. So good. It's so good.
Which doesn't make any sense because if Balky just found out about the sleeping bag,
how does Dimitri?
As we watched,
maybe Larry bought Dimitri one also when he went.
I don't think it's meant to make sense.
No, it never is.
A little Easter egg.
Dimitri's always this like weird, almost supernatural type, incident in the show, which is so great. Like
it's just like he's like a little Easter egg that doesn't need any explanation.
Let's visit our buddy Dimitri Sheep over on his Instagram account.
That's right. Dimitri over on Sheep. Instagram. Everyone should go to Instagram and follow Dimitri Sheep, all one word. This is our companion spin-off Instagram account set up by one of our fans, the very Dimitri Sheep himself. And Dimitri posts a themed post per every episode. So let's see what this episode's post looks like. The location is marked as Goose Downs Farm.
Very good.
Love it.
It's so funny how everyone's like, the sleeping bag bit is the best thing. It is. It's the best thing.
It wasn't just us.
No,
everyone remembers. Okay, so we have Dimitri Sheep, and he appears to be inside a blue, it looks like a makeup case or whatever, but it's meant to be that sleeping
Right.
bag with
Yeah.
zippers. Oh, and the eyes of the baby sheep that we sometimes see, which is cousin Larry
is in
sheep.
with
Yeah.
him. They're both in
Yeah,
the same little
I
pouch,
just saw that. I
makeup
didn't see that
pouch.
before.
Yeah, that's great.
You just see the eyes of the second sheep, which is the Larry sheep.
Yeah, that's great. It's
And they're in this
yeah.
blue zipper pouch, which is the sleeping bag. Just their heads are sticking out, or eyes. And then in front of them on the table is a book called Death by Burrito,
The cookbook. Mexican Street Food to Die For by Shea Ola. Okay. Wait. So how does that tie?
Mexican street food.
Death by Burrito. Well, I
This
guess
one's a puzzle.
they're kind of like a burrito wrapped together.
Maybe.
in the
Okay,
sleeping
maybe
bag.
they're a burrito. Okay. This one might have us a little bit bewildered. What is Death by Burrito? So the burrito refers to the sleeping bag. Okay.
There's also a scented candle.
Yes.
Coconut and beeswax scented fireside candle.
Fireside,
For the
that's like
camping.
a campfire. Yeah.
And then he's sitting on this fabric that has this pattern of, you know how when you would take
Origami boats.
origami boats, like you take the newspaper,
Printed, yeah.
way back in the day, very old timey
Yeah.
thing, and you make an origami boat or a hat. It looks like a hat, but
Yeah,
it's also a boat. So
that's a
the
reference
boat.
to
That's
the raft. Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I think
it's great.
That's great. I think the Death by Burrito is the fact that Larry's got him into another jam wrapped up in a sleeping bag again.
In a sleeping bag. Yes. It's all about the sleeping
They are
bag.
going-
This one.
yes.
Very awesome.
Well
This is my favorite. Very well done. We love it every week. Our favorite Instagram account. Everyone should go and follow Dimitri Sheep on the gram. Okay, and now it's time for the segment of our show that we call Perfect Strangers Today, or PS Today, in which we talk about if this story were to be redone today in 2022, would the story hold up? What things would be different? And how would it play out differently, or would it even be possible? So I think people still go camping.
There's still crazy camping gear you could get.
There's still
All
a bunch of
sorts of wild
expensive
gadgets.
glamping gear you can
Unnecessary,
get.
completely unnecessary things that you could take with you.
What about navigating this fork in the river? So nowadays people would have like a GPS or something.
Or even your phone would tell you, oh, definitely go this way
Right.
and not that way.
Before you even got, there'd be like, there's a fork coming up. Oh, I don't know. Does GPS work the same way in a river as it does for roads? Does it have river directions?
Maybe not,
The
but
way they
you
have
see a
driving
map. Maybe
directions.
you wouldn't
Yeah.
know. Maybe you wouldn't know that there was rapids. You would see if there's a waterfall. I think if you had a GPS device, it would just be like recalculating.
But how do you recalculate your way out of a left
No,
fork
you're
in
screwed.
a river?
You don't.
Yeah.
You get off. You just
The
pull the
river
raft,
still is one way. You know what I mean? Like,
over and get out. You
Yeah.
screwed up. But there's still company trips, and I guess they would.
Are
they
there
could take-
company camping trips?
I don't know about
Maybe, yeah.
on a mule. That also seemed weird. Like we're gonna get on a mule now to take you to your campsite.
I mean, I have a work trip coming up, and there's going to be some optional hiking. I probably won't go, but
if it was the kind of camping where there was like cabins and you had some running water, maybe.
And would you want to go camping with your
No,
coworkers?
probably not. It's the last, I see you enough. Now I got to be stuck with you for 24 hours.
And then would you take your wife on that trip? I don't know.
I don't know. I think largely the machismo of him trying to be all outdoorsy and show him a nice time.
That part would probably change if writers were to do this episode again. Like definitely that machismo, women want this, is not going to be in the show anymore.
You would let them cut some wood or something, chop some wood, carry an axe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part is definitely dated, but it provides
a little dated.
all of the conflict and the reason Larry gets him into this jail.
Yeah, that's very true too.
And you know what? I was surprised that there was an air mattress because they're still kind of popular. The air mattress, not for camping, just in general.
No, air mattresses are for people in small New York apartments when they have guests visit.
Right. Like, I'll sleep on the air mattress. And they're self-inflating, so you don't have to blow in them. That would have been a funny bit to watch them inflate.
Oh my gosh!
So
I have blown one up myself, and
Larry
it was
sat there
ridiculous.
and inflated that whole air mattress by himself. Probably, I'm surprised he
Probably.
wasn't winded.
Maybe he had one of those pumps, foot pumps. But otherwise, I think, when they were stuck in the sleeping bag and the phone rang, like nowadays, you could probably just be like, Alexa, answer the phone.
Oh, yeah, or just with your nose, put it on
talk
speaker.
into the air. Yeah.
Yes, there would be, you could sell speaker. You just put it on speaker. You don't have to hold it up. So that would have been funny.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like, still
Otherwise,
solid,
it would hold up.
solid
The
concept.
sleeping bag, you could still get stuck in a sleeping bag. The zipper could still get stuck.
No, like our listener said, it's like this is a timeless classic episode.
Yeah.
Probably one of the better ones out of the whole series, with that the goose line.
Yes.
So good. Hopping.
And if you can't wait to find out what happens, come or our thoughts about it.
Did they drown?
I don't know. We have to wait and find out. Well, we don't. You can watch the episode now, but come back next week to find out our thoughts and our fans' thoughts about the part 2 of this Up a Lazy River.
And how is Jennifer even still with him after this a second time?
She and am I wrong? Like she just never even looks like she's into him. I would love to interview the actress and be like, did Jennifer even like Larry? Because she was never into him.
She doesn't want to do anything outdoors or go on a trip with him. Or
like, did she not have other options?
No, I think it was slim. You've seen the other people at the Chronicle. There's slim pickings there.
But she doesn't have to date someone at the Chronicle. She doesn't even work at the Chronicle. She's a flight attendant.
We've seen, that's true. We've seen all the extras that they populate the show with. He is the best. He is the best pick. Unfortunately,
I don't know. All right.
Listener, if you enjoy listening to us geek out over Perfect Strangers episodes, there is a way you can support the show. You can buy us a virtual coffee. Visit danceofjoypod.com/support to buy a virtual coffee. Throw some Dig Does in there. Keeps the show going. Keeps us caffeinated and fueled to make it through all of the cousins' adventures.
And if you can't afford just a few Dig Does, that's totally okay too. You can do us a favor by visiting danceofjoypod.com. On that website, you can find all the places where you can like and subscribe and rate and review the podcast on all the podcast apps. You can also find all our social media links there, our Facebooks, our Twitters, our IGs. You can go there, give us a like, follow, leave us a comment. There's also a button on the website where you can leave us a voice message. Just click the button and talk to us. Tell us what you think. Tell us about your memory of the blue sleeping bag.
Or if you have another rabbi and kangaroo joke, I would love to hear.
Yes. Who can top Cousin Richard's rabbi and kangaroo joke? Leave us a voice message or an email will do too. We're at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Always listen to Balky when he says go right.
This is
never
true.
Go left.
This is true. And the second most important thing, of course, is share this show with a friend. If you like this show even a little bit, if we bring a smile to your face, if Perfect Strangers brings you joy, share this podcast with a friend. Tell a friend, a stranger, a neighbor, an Uber driver. Just spread the word, and we will very much appreciate that.
Thank you for listening, and now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey.